Hello there, are you ready for another story with NanNan? Today we're going to do A is for ah, or something like that. It's a big scream with the letter A. Ah! Can you do that? Let's all scream together. A is for ah! Did you do it? Do it again. A is for ah! That was funny, wasn't it? Anyway, this story is by Frank Rogers. And here we go. The headmistress left, and Beastie Barrett, the class bully, grinned and nudged his nasty pal, Biff Higson. "Let's have some fun with this one," he whispered. The others heard this and giggled. This could be fun, they thought. Miss Snitchell cleared her throat. "Now, children," she began, "we'll start with an alphabet exercise to test your vocabulary." Beastie turned to Biff and winked. Can you wink? Like that. Anyway, he winked. "She thinks we're babies," he said. "She's a pushover." "Who will give me an example to begin with?" said Miss Snitchell, looking around brightly. "A is for..." Here's the class, look. And these are obviously the Beastie Boys. And they think they're going to have a joke on Miss Snitchell. There she is, the teacher. So they're probably the naughty boys in the class. "Ah!" gurgled Beastie, falling backwards. The class roared with laughter. Beastie was up to his tricks again. Miss Snitchell smiled faintly. She could take a joke. There he is, he's making a joke, isn't he? And he's going, ah! "Remove your arrow, boy, and put it away," she said when the laughter subsided. Miss Snitchell looked around and continued. "B is for..." she said. There she is. She's in the classroom. And she's doing an alphabet class, isn't she? "B is for..." "Boo!" yelled Biff, jumping up from his seat. "Sit down, child," said Miss Snitchell sternly. Biff sat down, grinning smugly. Miss Snitchell took her finger. She shook her finger at him and carried on, so she went like that, like you mustn't do that. "C is for centipede," she said quickly before he could interrupt. "That's right, miss," shouted Beastie. "C is for centipede, which is a creepy crawly like my pet spider." There he is. That's a dirty looking face, isn't it? Funny face. But Beastie set his spider free on the desktop. Everybody shrieked at the spider as it scuttled down a chair leg and set off across the floor. But much to Beastie's disappointment, his hairy little pet disappeared down a crack in the floorboards. "Now sit down and pay attention," said Miss Snitchell. "Please." The children sat down and smiled. This was good fun. When everything was quiet, Miss Snitchell began again. "D is for deplorable," said Miss Snitchell sharply, pointing at Beastie, "which is what your behaviour has been, young man." Beastie smiled angelically. The class tittered. They laughed. "Now," smiled Miss Snitchell, the class quiet once more, "we will continue. E is for..." "Eek!" she shrieked as a mouse ran along the floor and jumped on one of her shoes. Biff Higson, amid screams of laughter from the class, ran over and picked it up. Look, there's the mouse. It jumped on the teacher's shoe and it made her jump. So she went, eek! E is for eek. "Sorry, miss," he said, grinning as he put it in his pocket. "It's my pet mouse, Mickey. He escaped." Miss Snitchell rapped on the desk for silence. She looked quite stern. F is for fright, which is what I got from your pet mouse, my boy. The class laughed. Miss Snitchell continued. G is for grandmother, which is what I am. I have 2 handsome grandsons about your age. They are the top goal scorers with their school team. Here is a picture of them holding the school's championship cup. The boys were impressed and the girls smiled, but Biff glowered at Beastie. She's better than I thought, he muttered. Just wait, hissed Beastie. We haven't finished with her yet. Look, and there's the teacher's grandsons. They're holding the school cup. And the 2 naughty boys, I wonder what they're trying to think of. I wonder if they're trying to think of something to frighten her again. Now, said Miss Snitchell, back to the alphabet. H is for handsome, said good-looking Jim Peters from the back. The other boys rolled their eyes and the girls smiled. Good, said Miss Snitchell. H is for horror, grinned Beastly. I love horror films. Do you now, said Miss Snitchell. Do you really? She trailed off and looked at Beastie in an odd way. Beastie grinned and nodded his head. Miss Snitchell continued. I is for icky poo, sniggered Biff loudly. The class giggled. That's enough, snapped Miss Snitchell. J is for jungle and Jack-in-the-Box and Juggernaut. Sorry about that one. Juggernaut is a really big lorry. There, look. He's saying icky poo. I think that's a made-up word, but it does begin with I, doesn't it? Icky poo. That's funny. K is for King Kong, bellowed Beastie, lumbering down the aisle like an ape. The class laughed again, encouraging Beastie and Biff. L is for Leopard Man, snarled Biff, growling and clawing at the girls. And M is for monster movies. Yeah, M is for mummy, shouted Beastie, winding a scarf around his face. The mummy from the tomb, he wailed, walking stiffly. There, look. There's the naughty boy pretending to be King Kong. And there they are all climbing all over the classroom. And there's the other boy pretending to be a mummy. M for mummy. N is for nasty, yelled Biff, throwing his book in the air. The class was now in uproar. Miss Snitchell shouted, but her voice couldn't be heard. I think perhaps the children had all been misbehaving. Look at that. I think they are misbehaving. Poor teacher, Miss Snitchell, look at her there. She's just about to give up, putting her head in her hands because the children are being naughty. They've run amok. O is for horrible, like what I am, yelled Beastie gleefully, jumping on top of a desk. From there he controlled the class, just like the conductor of an orchestra. He raised his hand. P is for putrid, yellowed the class. Q is for quicksand, they shouted. R is for rotten. S is for slime. T is for terrified. Miss Snitchell seemed to give up. She slumped forward on her desk, and the class looked at her curiously, with evil little grins. They wanted Miss Snitchell to watch them. It would be no fun if she didn't. They were so enjoying themselves. A muffled sound came from the teacher's desk. Hee, she's cracked, grinned Beastie. That was a bit mean. They gathered round her desk and listened to Miss Snitchell as she spoke into her arms. Ah is for, she whispered. Louder, miss, they shouted gleefully. We can't hear you, miss, they listened again. Said Miss Snitchell, her voice slightly muffled by her arms. Is for ah. The class was startled. Ah? Was that a word? There it is. Can you see all those U's? Ah? Puzzled, they looked at each other. So the children were looking at each other. Miss Snitchell was going on, her voice growing stronger and louder. V is for vampire. The class looked at one another. Ha ha, said Beastie. Miss Snitchell's got the joke. The class started to laugh, but stopped suddenly as Miss Snitchell raised her head. So she was leaning on the table like that, and then she lifted her head. W, she said, is for werewolf. The class gasped. The game was definitely over. Miss Snitchell had changed. Her little bird-like face was hairy and had a pointed nose and ears and dripping fangs. I wonder what she'd turned into. Look! I wonder if she's grown into a werewolf. Miss Snitchell's eyes narrowed. Y is for Yeti, she snarled, holding up a snapshot. My hairy monster friend from the Himalayas. Oh, and that's what she was holding a picture of. Look, the Yeti. The class stared open-mouthed, goggle-eyed. Beastie and Biff turned a lovely shade of green as Miss Snitchell's hairy finger pointed at them and then to the rest of the class. She grinned wickedly at Biff and Beastie, who slid down in their seats. The interval bell rang, but nobody moved. Miss Snitchell lifted up her hairy snout and gave a long, piercing, triumphant howl. Just then the headmistress came in. There she is, lifting up her nose and doing a big howl like, oh! Do you think you can do that? Oh! And she did that just as the headmistress came in. The class looked at the headmistress. The headmistress looked at Miss Snitchell, then at the class. Miss Snitchell smiled sweetly. I'm pleased to see that Class 3 behaved themselves, Miss Snitchell, she said. Oh, yes, said Miss Snitchell. They were little angels. She turned to the class and her eyes twinkled mischievously. Class dismissed, she said. Look, and she turned back into the teacher, Miss Snitchell, even though she'd been a werewolf for a little while. R is for I think I would have screamed and gone, ah, if I'd seen a werewolf in the classroom. Would you? I think we all would have done that. That was a bit of a strange book. A little bit different. And it did the alphabet. Different words for the alphabet. Anyway, that's the end of that one. Bye for now.